Hey everybody, today let's take a look at the GD B500. Now, I've changed my lighting a little bit. All day I was wearing this watch and I'm like, man, the visibility is great. It's a positive display. It looked excellent. I did a lot of walking in it. I bring it inside and this display, the visibility is a little compromised when indoors, especially under harsh lights. Once I start to turn on all of my lights, yeah, it's not so great. It's a little unique here. Most digital watches have a diffuse background. It's kind of fuzzier. But this one's like a mirror. It's a little, a little warbly mirror, but yeah, I could see myself in it. It didn't feel that way outdoors. Anyways, this is the GD B500, the GD series of watches. The G means G-Shock. All modern G-Shocks start with G. D means digital only. There's a GD 200, a GD 400, and so on. The B in here means Bluetooth, but let's not get too caught up on that. I'll explain the pros and cons over it. I think the way it's done here is great. This is not a smartwatch. Yep, you can see my fingerprint right there. That is, that's pretty reflective. This watch is something I've been looking forward to for a very long time. Not the Bluetooth, but rather the size. This is now the new thinnest G-Shock ever. It is tied. There was another G-Shock about 15 years ago, the G056 and the GW056. I think 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. A lot of people think this watch here was the thinnest G-Shock. For a while, it was the thinnest one that you can buy. But no, it was this 15-year-old G-Shock. And finally, we have one that ties with it. This is 11 millimeters thick. We can just kind of confirm that on camera for you. That's what they say. I'm seeing 11. Supposedly, these guys are 11.8. And they get to that thinness through that carbon core. Yeah, I'm saying 11.8 sounds reasonable to me. So we now have a new tide for the thinnest G-Shock ever, and I'm really pleased with that. For the longest time, when G-Shock first came out, this watch right here was the original G-Shock, the square. This came out in 1983, and I loved it, and to this day, it's my favorite G-Shock. Since this time, G-Shocks have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In some ways, that makes sense. A bigger G-Shock might be able to withstand more of a shock. But also, a larger G-Shock, in my experience, you wind up just knocking it on everything. This thing, to me, is a bit of a hockey puck. And so it better be shock resistance, because it's going to get a lot of shock. I've been looking forward to a smaller G-Shock for a long time, and for the longest time, this guy right here is not just kind of the icon, but it has been one of the smaller ones. And finally, another one that came out that I think is very comparable in size. Firstly, I want to talk about the different colorways of this watch while I kind of spin this around. You get a good look at it. It's available in 4 different colorways. There's an all blacked out version, black case, black strap, black, on a negative display. That's where most of the display is black with lighter lettering. Then there is a version that's all white band, bezel, everything, but that does have a black display. People call that like Stormtrooper, because it's black and white. There's an all green version as well, slightly different colors of green. This bit right here is like a translucent green, and the screen is green. I'm all for color, but that was a little too green for me. This one right here, in all the promotional materials in the United States, this watch was nowhere to be seen. For a while, people thought this was only going to be available in Asian markets, and the other 3 would just be for the US. But no, America got all 4, and I bought this directly from Casio. It's $130. We'll see if it's worth that. In the world of watches, that's a cheap watch. To a lot of people who are watch enthusiasts, budget watch is anything under $1,000. It's kind of crazy. In the world of G-Shocks, in the world of Casio lovers, $130 is not the cheapest. You can pick up these for like $45 or so, maybe. I got mine for $45. So, what makes this worth $130 and what makes it so special? As I already said, it is tied for the thinnest G-Shock ever. It's also, just beyond that, a very compact watch. This dimension here, the traditional way to measure a watch dimension is end to end, and I'm getting 38 millimeters on that. And that's a pretty modern, more compact size. I have another watch, non-Casio here, 38 millimeter, reasonably well known, and I'd say they're pretty comparable to one another. The display on this is smaller, and you got to trust me when I say indoors. I'm looking at my camera, visibility is poor. All day, I was like, wow, this watch is really easy to read. Apparently only if you're outside hiking with it. Good thing, because it does have a step counter. It is kind of an activity watch. But they're both 38 millimeter watches, and I think it wears true to that. If you measure kind of here to here, it's like 41 millimeter. I do think if you've ever seen these tank style watches that are taller than they are wide, they wear bigger than they might seem. If anything, I think the best comparison is this. They're pretty much neck and neck in terms of its size. It's just the traditional square is wider than it is tall, at least the main kind of face of it. And this watch, it really does look like in some ways they just rotated it around. They rotated it this way. They're pretty comparable, but it does take up less width on your wrist, and I think it's a little more comfortable. Now, there might be smaller G-Shocks. There's a whole line of G-Shock called Baby G, marketed towards women, maybe children. There might be some smaller watches in there, but this is, to my knowledge, the smallest full-sized, let's say, non-Baby G-Shock. And it doesn't feel tiny. Yeah. 7 minutes in, let's get this on the wrist. It doesn't feel small. My wrist is 7.5 inches thick. Actually, no, it is not 7.5 inches thick. 7.5 inches around. And I think it looks great. It looks like a normal-sized watch. It's not a Goliath. I love Casio and I love G-Shock, but I'm not really into the huge watches. And for 40 years now, they've been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I have that guy. It's pretty much an exception. I think it looks really cool. I happen to love this colorway. I think orange and gray have always gone together with each other really well. This is the only positive display model. It's it's a mirror finished positive display. Gray and orange go really well. I think the mix between white and that gray is cool. I think this accent piece of this translucent bit right here is really, really cool. You either love it or you don't, but as I said, there are 4 different colorways. There's got to be one that you really, one that appeals to you. So I think the size is spot on. That's the real winner here. I got to apologize. I got these ceiling lights and they glare, but if you're not trying to make a video of this watch, yeah, I think it's pretty readable. It's pretty visible. So the size is great. Moving on from there. It has the full suite of things. Yeah, first time I'm hitting a button in this. You have the stopwatch. You can review everything that you've recorded on a stopwatch. So it's not just measuring one thing. You can measure things with laps, and there's a record of everything you've measured. It's not the first Casio to do that. You have a countdown timer, so you can set a 10-minute alarm or 10-minute counter, right? It's going to beep when it gets down to nothing. Let's reset that. These are the usual things. You have a dual time, so you could have a second time zone, and you have 5 alarms on it. But the neat thing about this, it also has a step counter. So this is, I'm in app info mode. Okay, cool. So it has a standard time mode where you see the day, you see the year, the date, and everything. It's a pretty large screen, and it fits more information on it than the standard square. In this case, it's the year. In the upper right corner, let's zoom in. I actually had much more information on this to show you, but I did a firmware update and it cleared it. Right here, you see like a 0 and you see 100. You can set how many steps you want to take in a day. And this kind of fills in starting from there, and it goes around up towards 100%. And those little blocks there that you see, it's kind of blinking on and off. It shows you basically your percentage, like a pie chart. And then alternatively, I could keep it in this mode where you see the total counts of steps, you have that pie chart, and what you really can't see here, because I did that firmware update, it's a bar chart over time. So that this number here kind of goes up and down and up and down. I see this really tiny pip here, which means like in the last hour I did a few steps, 151 steps here. So you get a good visualization of your step count. What I like about that is a little bit of a fitness watch. This is called a pedometer, without kind of running your life. And the thing is, if you like the style of this watch and you like the form factor, but you don't care about that, you just ignore it. You don't have to use it. You can disable the step counter if you want. There's a lot of options for you in here. The other thing this has is Bluetooth. That's the B in the name. Bluetooth is a little controversial on these Casios. Some people love it. Some people hate it. You know, I'm mixed on it myself. I can understand. You want a watch to be timeless. Is this watch going to be usable in 10, 15, 20 years? Well, I've had some smartwatches where no, you take them out of the box, you have to connect it to your phone, and if you don't, it's a wait. That's not the case with Casio. Casio does a much better job. This watch, if you want to ignore the Bluetooth, you absolutely can. You do not have to use it. And it is not a smartwatch. It doesn't get notifications on your watch. It's purely for a couple of small features. All of the settings that you have in the watch, you can do on your phone if you want. That's mostly it. So if you don't use the Bluetooth, you just, all the settings that you would use your phone for, you do it right on the watch. The main things that are unique to the app is it has a Find My Phone feature. I can press and hold one of these buttons and my phone's gonna ring if it's within range. And there's time synchronization. So it uses atomic time on the app on my phone, and that syncs with the watch. There's another way of doing that using the radio towers, and a lot of people love that, myself included. This watch right here, it has that. It's atomic time. They call it wave scepter, that multi-band 6. But the thing is, most of the world doesn't have access to those towers. Bluetooth works everywhere. Bluetooth is going to work in South America, Africa, Asia. Most of the world that doesn't have those atomic time radio towers is going to work. There I am. So that's why Casio is moving towards Bluetooth, I have to say. I know a lot of people would prefer not to use that. Yeah, it's iffy. My take on it is that it's so easy to just ignore it. And one day when the app is no longer maintained and we're not using iOS and Android anymore, this watch will keep on ticking. You can still use it. You can still set it. You can absolutely ignore Bluetooth. But in the meantime, we have a watch that anyone all around the world has a way to synchronize with atomic time. People who are not within range of a radio tower. I think the value proposition is there. Anyways, I wanted to just touch upon some of the negatives on this watch, things that I may not like, and then we can kind of wrap this up. We're already 13 minutes in. Wow. Great size. I think great feature set. I think it's priced reasonably. $130 is its full price now. I'm sure in a little bit the price you're going to be able to find for less than that. I'm sure other colors are going to come out. The one gripe I have, this right here, this is a standard spring bar. That's really cool. This strap, you love it, you don't love it, whatever. I think it's okay. It's plenty pliable enough. Not the best strap, maybe not the worst strap. The thing is, that's a standard spring bar. It has these little holes in it right here. And you could use a standard spring bar tool and you could kind of poke that out and you could replace the strap. The thing is, that's 16 millimeters wide. It is really hard to find replacement straps of that size. And there's enough plastic here. This flares out to, let's say, 22 millimeter. There's enough room where they could have had that notch 18 or 20 millimeter. And they could have made this compatible with all sorts of straps on the market without the need to buy an adapter or anything. That would have been really, really cool. I have an adapter on some of my G-Shocks. I like the ability to have flexibility there. They could have made that right from the factory, and I think it's a bit of a bummer that they didn't. Other than that, Maybe the other con that I'm saying, yeah, this mirror screen, neat, interesting. I guess in a pinch, you can comb your hair a little bit if I had to, and my camera's in the way. But yeah, I think the standard diffuse backlight. Oh, I guess the last thing we could end this out on is just showing the light. I thought the light was pretty powerful. I thought that was plenty good. Tons of settings on this watch. You can have it go on for 1 second, 3 seconds. There's a power saving mode that you could turn on and off. I haven't really gone deep into the functionality. I'm assuming you've seen G-Shock before. It does all the things your standard G-Shock does, but it has I think a really well implemented step counter. These step counters, I don't know what info mode is. Ever since I synchronized it with my watch, there's a third like sub mode called info, and all it does is says info. I think it I don't know, but standard time mode, we see a lot of information simultaneously. We see this little pie chart up here of steps. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this, and I think it's going to be a keeper. For me, the main thing I care about is the size, and finally we have a G-Shock that is a sensible size for people who've liked the square for all these years. And all these other awesome G-Shocks have come out, but they've all been pretty much bigger than this. And finally, we have one that's on par with it. And I think that's awesome. See you next time.